Hi there, I'm April Callis-Birchmeier, and welcome to my LinkedIn Live. I'm excited to talk about things revolving around change management and how to help organizations manage change more effectively. Today, for our LinkedIn Live, I'm going to be talking about mastering the people side of change. We'll be talking about communication and engagement strategies and how those are really essential to help organizations and individuals move from the current state to the future state through change. So let's talk a little bit about this whole people side of change. One of the interesting things that I hear sometimes when I talk with change management professionals is that they always like to say that they work with the people side of change. And I think about what are they actually saying? What they're actually trying to say is they are not a project manager who is navigating the technical necessities for the change. They are not necessarily the sponsor who's responsible and accountable for the change. They are the practitioner who is focusing on those people who will have to make this change. And when I say make this change, it's in two ways, right? We have to help people to change their mindset to adapt the change. And we also have to help people change their behavior to adopt the change. And so that's what we're talking about when we're saying mastering the people side of change, is that we are working with the individuals who will be actually changing mindset, changing behavior to match that current state. And that's when we know we've reached adoption, when the behavior and the mindset of those individuals who are stakeholders in the change match the future state that's envisioned. Future state or story that we've talked about is envisioned. So let's figure out, how do we master the people side of change? Well, the two biggest pieces I think that are necessary, and sometimes we only think of one piece, but the two pieces that are really necessary are communication, which is the one that everyone thinks of, communication about the change. And the second one is engagement strategies. Engaging our people so that they're able to adopt the change is really important. And sometimes this is the piece that I feel we struggle with the most. And sometimes practitioners will feel like it's a communication issue. I really believe it's one of engagement. One second. When I'm talking about being a one of engagement, we recognize that there's so much communication going out all the time for individuals about all sorts of changes and tasks and things that they must pay attention to, right? If I looked at my email today, I could tell you I've received probably 8 surveys from different companies who would like my opinion about their product or their service or their this or their that. And I have to look through those and either delete them or respond to them, decide what I'm going to do with them. And that decision is somewhat tiring. I also have a lot of email inviting me to things, and you probably get a lot of email inviting you to things as well. And then I have to decide, is this something I want to attend? Is this something I feel is important for me as a change professional? Is this an area where I need to participate in this activity? And so that, again, is a lot of decisions. And then I feel like I'm looking at the emails that have a lot of tasks in them. So those are pieces that I've got to work on. I need to schedule these tasks. I need to complete my work, and I need to ensure that I'm doing a good job. And then I've got other emails that are just telling me about things like FYI, you should know about this. Those are the emails that I sometimes feel are the communication emails that we send. The communication email that says, FYI, we're doing this project. FYI, we're doing this thing. And I'm usually surprised when I get this FYI email. and there's no action for me to take because I'm trying to understand, why was this sent? If we're communicating about a project taking place, usually we want to do some sort of a call to action, some sort of a reason for communicating this information. We're sending this to you because you're an important stakeholder group and we know you'll want to be involved. We'll contact you in 2 months to ensure that you know how to get connected. Something along those lines, as opposed to, we are starting this new project and we wanted you to know. I appreciate that you want me to know, but I'm using my email to figure out what I must do. How do I connect? How am I supposed to engage? And without giving me any kind of engagement response that I can participate in, whether it's go to a website and sign up if you would like to learn more, or maybe it's click this link and send us, your feedback, or perhaps it's a task. Look in your department and identify 2 additional people that you could invite to this meeting so that you're aware of what's happening with this change. All of those pieces are engaging. Those are engagement pieces. And so I think that communication and engagement really goes hand in hand. Now, in the standard, which I'm all about the standard for change management, the ACMP standard for change management, which lays out how we expect change to be delivered and sustained to help people go through the master the change so we can help people adopt the change. When I look at that standard, I see the communication plan and the stakeholder engagement plan called out as 2 separate plans. And I often tell my students, I combine those plans a lot of times. I'm combining my communication that's going out with my engagement that is trying to connect my stakeholder back to me, connect them to the project, give them a call to action and a reason to dig for more information and find out more. And so, even though in the plan document they are separate pieces, I tend to combine them in my own planning documents. I combine them because I feel like they are naturally combined. I'm trying to engage my stakeholder with communication, right? And there are other things that I can do for engagement also. Let's start by thinking a little bit about which level we want to think about engagement. So the first level I like to really visualize engagement in is my sponsor level, where I'm engaging the leader. Now, I feel it's incredibly important for my leader to be engaged in the change and to recognize what is going on in terms of this change. I want my leader to be in alignment with the change, to understand who the stakeholders are and what they are going through, how this is impacting them in terms of behavior and mindset and their general sentiment about their role. And I want my leader to also be very engaged with the change itself, like to recognize that the curve that we have to go through, that change curve where we're leading people from that current state to the future state. I want my leader to be very engaged in that motion as well, where they are actually understanding how they need to help themselves move through the current state to the future state. And when I'm engaging my leader, I'm also, I'm thinking about my sponsor. I'm also looking at how can I help my sponsor to be more effective and more engaging for the stakeholders. And that's where I start to have fun, because there are a lot of ways to make our sponsors more engaging. Some sponsors that I've had in the past, I will admit, I may have felt they were slightly boring. But as I got to know them, I discovered they had very interesting habits or activities that they like to work on. It's important to recognize that the sponsors um, are people who have histories and backgrounds and hobbies and families and vacations, and uh, they may share all of that with the stakeholder groups, and it's engaging for the stakeholders. When our sponsors are one dimensional, just standing up and being the corporate sponsor, and they are simply reading a PowerPoint for a town hall meeting, or they're just talking about uh, what they um, know that they're supposed to cover in their town hall meeting, and they're not really listening to the questions that are coming to them. When we have that situation, that's not true engagement. What we want is to help that sponsor sort of break through and get to who they are. And when we can help them get to who they are, and we can help that sponsor share with the stakeholders who they are and why they're so passionate about this change, that engages stakeholders. That gets people excited. That helps stakeholders really recognize that the sponsor is there to help them move through this change. So engaging our leaders and engaging our sponsors is not only essential, it's really I say not only essential, it is not only essential, but it's imperative to do this. And it's imperative for us who are change practitioners, those of us who are change leaders, to help the sponsor in that way. And it's not always simple, because sponsors sometimes um, are hard to reach, can be intimidating, are very, very busy, always very busy. So connecting with them is important. And that's why I build activities for them. My sponsor does not have time to think about activities. My sponsor is very busy with their day-to-day job, but I can think about activities. And the activities can be anything from office hours to have one-on-one conversations with folks, town hall meetings, as we mentioned, in-person meetings, virtual meetings, podcasts, videos, some sort of video blog, if they will, written articles, inspiring presentations, conference presentations. I mean, there are just a wealth of opportunities to plan, sponsor activities that can engage our stakeholders and that make it very engaging for the sponsors as well, because they're very connected to this change now. It's difficult to go speak at a conference about a change and not be more connected to it. So when we think about engaging our leaders, now we want to think about those leader activities engaging our stakeholders. And then we want to think also about other engagement activities uh, with our stakeholders. And so the E of the READY framework, we have R for relevant, relatable story of change, E for engaging leaders. E is also for engagement of those stakeholders through the change and helping them to recognize and adopt the new mindset and behavior that must happen to make it to that future state. Um, and then we look at the A of the READY framework. REA is for advanced communication. And that's where we start to see that we need a lot of communication to engage and also to ensure that our stakeholders are aware of what's happening and have some way to connect with us. They have some feedback loop to connect with the project team, with the sponsor, and to feel truly engaged with this change. And so it used to be years ago that we said, people needed to hear a message 7 times before we recognized that they understood that the message was meant for them, that it applied to them, that they should pay attention to it. But now Gallup said the most recent study was 9 to 16 times, which is a lot. If you are working on a change project and you need to reach out to your stakeholders between 9 to 16 times before they even pay attention to you, you need a long runway for that. You need some space to get that done. In fact, I was just talking with a group today about a change that's happening in July, end of June, beginning of July. And I said, we have a quarter here, right? Like if we start, we're in the end of the last quarter of the month of the first quarter, the last month of the first quarter. So we're in March. If we really start to work together in April, we have April, May, and June to work together. And that's not that much time. That's only, 12 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks. It'd be good if I knew math. 12 weeks for us to think about getting out 16 messages, right? So we're going to send out a message a week. We need to start in March. We need to start immediately. And so maybe you think, well, I'm going to shoot for the 9 messages. Well, you still need some runway because messaging, communications takes time. Communication takes time to write, to think about the target audience and what they need to know, the who, what, where, when, and why of the message. Then that message has to be reviewed and approved. And then the message can be sent, but the message is going to be sent through email, or is it sent through a newsletter, or is it sent through some sort of alert system? How is this message getting to the end user? And so all of that takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of time and effort. And so we can never start too early, I think, on communication. Even if we are at that point where we're sending out communication saying, hey, we're starting a project, this may impact you, not now, but in 10 months, you might be impacted by this project. Go here for some more information, right? Give a link to more information so that they have a place to engage and connect and feel that they can be welcome in learning more about this change and the future state that's headed their way. So when I think about communication, I'm always looking for channels. I'm always trying to figure out, how can I get to my targeted stakeholder? What are they reading? What are they listening to? What are they thinking about? Where are they online so I can find them? And so if we're thinking about our communication channels, we're trying to figure out the channel that they are using to receive information. And it's become easier to share information because, of course, we have the internet that we didn't used to have many, many years ago. And we are able to use email and such. But I think the ease of email has been somewhat of its curse because now there's so much email that people don't pay as much attention. So that gives us an opportunity to look for other channels where we know we can grab people's attention. I think that there are still a lot of visual opportunities to use a visual channel for our communication. Immediate thing comes to mind is some sort of a billboard or sign, some sort of a flyer or a poster of an image that really captures attention. All of those things are great channels to communicate through. And then I think about, television is a great channel to communicate. When I go to watch a movie at the movie theater, the advertisers all have commercials for the first 10, 12 minutes of sitting in the theater before the movie even begins. So I think that there's a lot of channels visually. We have a lot of channels that we can use that are written, obviously. As I mentioned, newsletters. I think we have to also take advantage of written communication that is old but can become new again, such as postcards. I think postcards are very effective communication tools because hardly anyone receives mail anymore. So when something comes in the mail, a letter or a postcard, and it's hand addressed, it doesn't appear to be junk mail, then it can be really, really beneficial for breaking through the noise of email and using a communication channel that maybe is a little older, a little old school, if you will, but is helpful because people have access to it and it captures their attention. I think also then we want to recognize that there are um, so we've got our visual channels, we have our written channels. We want to think also about like the auditory channel, right? People want to hear about change. So podcasting or videos or shorts are all great ways to capture attention, talk about, you know, how this change will impact people. And that's a great way to deal with limited communication channels as well. Sometimes I'm working for agencies or organizations that have a very um, formal, a very formal communication process where, every communication must be reviewed extensively and scheduled and sent. And sometimes it's uh, great if we can find those communication channels like a webinar, right? Where our sponsor is delivering information through a webinar. And it gives us this opportunity to share information and to communicate through a channel that we don't always have access to, but can be very, very effective. I also think about engagement as a two-way feedback loop, as I had mentioned. I think having two-way feedback loops built into our stakeholder engagement plan is really important. How do I know? How do I know what my stakeholders think? How do I know if they're receiving this messaging? And so, one of the tools that I like to use when I'm conducting a change is I do like to have 5 points within the project excuse me, within the change management project, 5 points where I am measuring how my stakeholders are doing. And it's very intentional, very deliberate, because I want to ensure that my stakeholders are receiving the messaging and the engagement activities that I'm putting forward. And so this cadence of having 5 points over the change management project timeline to measure where our stakeholders are and to see if they are receiving this relevant, relatable story, if they feel engaged or they feel connected to their leaders around this change, if they have heard much about the change and that they understand if they have to have training or don't have to go to training to be able to use the new system or new process or the reorg. And then finally, I like to think about, have we addressed their resistance? Because we all have resistance to change. I mean, it's a very natural sensation. Somebody wants us to do something that is different than what we're currently doing. We have sort of an immediate response of like, no, no, I'm all set, thank you. And that can turn into behavior that's resistant in nature, where we may block others' timelines or um, use our time to do deep analysis and not trust others. We can sometimes feel like we're um, stuck in a place where we don't want to change and we're just not going to do it. And I've been part of a number of projects where I feel like that's happened. Somebody has said, I just don't plan to adopt this change. I'm not going to do this. I'm too late in my career. I don't feel like doing one more system. And that is their choice if they choose to step away from that role so they don't have to go through the change. I've also had folks who, can get really sarcastic and negative and make a lot of comments about the change or some nonverbal communication about the change, like, oh my God, this is crazy, right? And that can be really an interesting perspective on resistance, because those folks are generally pretty easy to talk with, but can be quite vocal about not being ready for the change. And then I think about folks who are direct, who know where they're going, who like to be in control and help others know where they're going, have others go where they want them to go. And yet, this sometimes those folks can get really hostile, and almost feel like they want to fight and take on other groups. So I think that that can be a real distraction as well. So when I think about all of these resistance types and the resistance that can occur, one of the best ways to diffuse resistance is to really delve into that. Why are we making this change? Delve into the reason for the change, the vision of that change, the story of the change, and help those folks start to mitigate their resistance by relying on them to provide other skills that they have. The leader starts to lead again. The um, socializer begins to speak highly of the change, or at least somewhat positively. Let's just say not negatively about the change. Um, our steadiness person, our understander who loves to understand information for themselves, they start to understand and describe why they feel like this change might be possible for them to adopt, or why they choose to move forward with it to others. And then we have our folks who really like to um, look at details, and they're very analytical, and we have to help them to see the details and also the impact that their analysis is having on our detailed plans, so that we can ensure that we stay on our timelines and we don't fall off the timelines. So I love to talk about engagement strategies, engagement activities, communication strategies, and communication activities. And if you'd love to talk about this also, I think you would be perfect to earn your CCMP, your Certified Change Management Professional designation. It's from the Association of Change Management Professionals, which you can get to by going to ACMP Global, GLOBAL.com or .org. Gosh, it'd be good if I knew the address. ACMPglobal.org is where you need to go. And if you went to ACMPglobal.org, you would see certification, you would see the Certified Change Management Professional, CCMP, and you need 21 hours of training to qualify to apply to take the exam. And I would love to help you in our Ready, Set, Change accelerated training and exam prep. We teach the Ready framework, which is the framework I've created, and love to help others through change and into that successful future state where we realize the benefits of the change using the Ready framework. And we also help people prepare for and pass the CCMP exam. In fact, we have more than 120 of our students have passed the exam in the last 2.5 years. So we're really thrilled with their success. So proud of all of our alumni. It's really an awesome group to be a part of. We'd love to have you be a part of our group. So I appreciate your attendance and interest in the LinkedIn Live today, talking about the how to master the people side of change. And focusing on the communication and engagement strategies, so that you are able to take this information back and apply it to your projects and your change initiatives to be more effective and to help everybody in your organization get ready for change. See you next time. Thank you.